If you go to the South El Paso neighborhood of Chihuahuita, you might run into Calleros Court. At the intersection there's a bus station that takes folks to and from Mexico. In fact, this humble-looking station sits right next to the Paso del Norte port of entry, sometimes known as the Santa Fe Bridge, where more than 10 million people enter into the country each year. The stories of the millions who arrive by bus at Calleros Court may share surprising similarities to the person their place of arrival is named after. Dr. Cleofas Calleros was a historian, a war veteran, a social worker, but most of all, he was one of the millions of people then and now whose lives straddled the border. Cleofas was a veteran of the First War and a strong believer in the Constitution, yet he was deported twice in his life. He had a lot of learning but never attended high school because he had to support his family. More than anything, he was a refugee whose family came to this country to escape persecution, and who led the way for others to follow. It is these contrasting yet complementary elements that best represent life along the border, and that Cleofas Calleros can teach us about.
Cleofas Calleros was born in Rio, Florida, Chihuahua, Mexico on the 9th of April 1896 to Ismael Calleros and Refugio Morales. The family moved to Chihuahua City when Cleofas was an infant. There he attended school and he would have likely remained there had it not been for a very unfortunate incident. The reason that my father came to El Paso was due to the fact that he had a contract to transfer the freight and materials at that time to build the Teatro de los Héroes. As he was loading the grass, an employee of Governor Luis Terrazas told him to take one load to the Teatro de los Héroes and one load to the Quinta Carolina, which was the governor's palace to be. When my father refused to comply with the request, his wagons and mules and horses were confiscated and he was put on a freight train coming north to El Paso. He was instructed to come to the United States and never return to Mexico. Unwilling to stomach the embezzlement scheme of corrupt politicians, Ismael Calleros became a political refugee in the full sense of the word. He soon found work as a bottle washer at this Paso dairy and asked his family to join him there. This would radically alter the course of the life of young Cleofas. It used to make me mad to even think how you were expelled from Mexico, the injustice that was done to my father. The Calleros family were not the only ones making their way into El Paso at this time. From about 1883 or 1884, Mexicans started to come to the US for the purpose of going to the renganches. Renganches were agencies which hired Mexicans to work for the railroads, especially the Santa Fe, the Southern Pacific, and the GH and the SA. It may seem almost alien today just how easy it was to cross the border during this explain period. All you had to do coming from Mexico if you were a Mexican citizen was to report at the immigration office on the American side. Give your name, the place of your birth, and where you were going to. That's all you needed. Despite these new opportunities, Mexicans still faced an uphill battle during this time period, and this shaped Cleofas growing up. Inside the Mexican community, society was also sharply divided by class. There were many Mexicans here for reasons of personal security. The affluent, the rich, the poor, among whom I count myself, were here for economic reasons. There were many wealthy exiles here. In the streets of Montana, Rio Grande, Arizona, Sunset, there lived the well-to-do, the rich, families of money. And we, the poor, live south of Mill Street. Cleofas attended the Sacred Heart School of the Loreto school system. Even at an early age, Cleofas showed a strong spirit. I remember in the 7th grade I took all the history books and I threw them out the window because I didn't believe what they were teaching me. I used to go home and tell my grandfather and father, "Look what they are teaching me about the Alamo and San Jacinto and Texas independence." After graduating from middle school, Cleofas went straight to work since he needed to help support his family. Cleofas became a messenger boy at 17 for the Santa Fe Railroad Company, where he worked until 1926. Cleofas found himself prospering in his country, but there was also some hardships in his early life. In 1904 or 1905, we had a diphtheria epidemic in El Paso, and all Mexicans living in El Paso were sent to Juarez, regardless of citizenship. My brother Martin died there in El Paso of diphtheria on a Monday, and Rita died on Wednesday. Then my mother and myself, we were deported to Juarez. And by that time I had another sister, Soledad, who was born in El Paso. She died on Friday of that same week, and I was the only one of the family left. So after the diphtheria was over, then we came back. Things were changing rapidly during this period. Concerns over immigration were rising, and the United States was becoming ever more involved in world affairs. In 1917, the United States joined the First World War, and Cleofas joined up as well. I lied my way to get into the army because I was not of age and I was a non-citizen. The war changed Cleofas because he discovered a Hispanic component of American history that he felt had been suppressed in the schoolrooms of America. According to Cesar Caballero, in the intimate conversations that I had with Mr. Calleros, he would tell me how he would spend his free time when he was not on duty. He liked to travel, and from France he would go to Spain. There he immersed himself in Spanish culture. He went to the most ancient Spanish universities. And from there, I think Mr. Calleros woke up, we could say, and understood what his mission, in terms of culture, in terms of defending his people, and what his true mission would be upon returning from Europe. He served with distinction, receiving a Purple Heart. Once again in El Paso, Cleofas made it his mission to protect Hispanic people and to educate others about Hispanic culture. It was after the war that the first restrictions against Mexican immigration started to appear, in part to control the flow of refugees that came from Mexico during the Revolution and Cristero Wars. In 1926, Cleofas took a job at the National Catholic Welfare Conference in the Department of Immigration and Naturalization. Cleofas took the job and worked eagerly in it. I was asked to go to Washington, and then I was to spend 3 months in New York, 2 months in Philadelphia, and 2 more months in Chicago learning the work. I said, no, I don't want to learn anything, I know it all. Cleofas struggled to help people during this time period, especially after the coming of the Great Depression. Competition for scarce jobs meant that Mexicans were deported from the United States, whether they were American citizens or not. Calleros struggled to make immigration officers understand the program. There are too many anecdotes and stories of Cleofas' work with immigration to tell them all. Thanks to the work with Calleros, untold numbers of American citizens were able to return to their country of origin. Cleofas continued his interest in history and pursued a historical career. This culminated in his magnus opus in 1954, Historia del Templo de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. He collaborated on this work with the Spanish professor Dr. de Velasco. The book was printed in a limited edition using traditional methods and a variety of materials such as stones, local animal leathers, feathers, and vellum. Copies were presented to JFK, LBJ, and the Pope in the Vatican. For this achievement, he was awarded the Isabella la Católica Prize and a knighthood by the Spanish government. Cleofas also made Knight Commander of the Order of St. Gregory the Great by the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic society of which he was a long-standing member. Cleofas Calleros passed away on the 22nd of February of 1973. He had donated many of his documents to the El Paso Public Library 3 years before, and his family donated the rest to the UTEP Special Collections. Dr. Calleros was buried in Fort Bliss with full military honors. In Caballero's interview in April 9, 1973, he said, I ask God sincerely that the current generation produce a man not of the intellectual and moral stature of Mr. Calleros, but simply half of that. Perhaps in one of the buses arriving at Calleros' court that carry millions every year into this country, a worthy successor will be found.